The Light Pact was an alliance created by the 4 major races of Vera in order to solve the mystery of the Harbingers. Until that fateful day when the stars fell, chaos reigned and corruption spread. The Light Pact worked together and put aside all enmity. For the first time in a very long time, no wars were fought, and peace became a way of life. For a time at least. Let us remember. Aramis ran his fingers along the delicate dragon inlaid upon his favorite implement. It was a symbol of power, of elements given form, and these types of symbols resonated along essence lines and channeled their violence. He sighed as he placed the wand in its sheath, and continued to pack his travel gear. The road would be a long one, and he might never return. Such is the price the Light Pact would demand. Rakashi the Blackened Ember dashed inside the creature's reach, her 2 blades a fury of motion, 1,000 cuts in a single breath. The beast did not realize it had died until much later, and only felt a peaceful rush of warmth as life spilled from it. Rakashi planted her foot on the chest of her opponent and pushed hard, sending her through the air toward the second lumbering monster. The first blade cut deeply into what could charitably be called a neck, as the second pierced through one of its many eyes. As both horrors fell, she wiped clean her short swords and proceeded down the cavern. Gelchrist held a lantern in one hand and a club in the other. His children were with his wife in the cellar. The pounding on the door grew louder, the unearthly gibbering grew in numbers, and then they were at the walls, the windows, scraping, clawing, throwing their bodies at the structure. The door shattered and splintered. The walls gave way, and Gelchrist threw his lantern at the floor, where it exploded into a great fireball fueled by oil and pitch. Better ashes by his own hand than whatever the ancients had in store for him. Nothing is ever final, not with the gods watching over us. At least that's how it felt before the Harbingers arrived. Now it feels as if everything is final, that we are merely holding on to the edge until our strength gives out, our fingers slip, and we fall into the abyss. There are those who would fight and struggle, but the end remains inevitable. We will all die at the hands of the ancients. Better to make it quick. At least that's what the whispers say. He whispered a prayer to whatever gods were still listening and drew back the string of his bow. Creation had fallen, the portals were closed, and the end was here. Survival did not seem possible, but Phaedrum would not travel into that dark night willingly. He took a deep breath, held it for a moment, closed his eyes and let loose. Even with his eyes closed, the light was blinding. His arrow became a giant beam of light, piercing 1, then 2, then 3 of the behemoths currently tearing the city apart. It seemed that someone still was listening. They worked tirelessly into the night, an army of smiths, deep in the heart of the mountain where the magma flowed and was captured by the obsidian forge. There was an endless parade of broken swords and damaged armor making their way down to the forge, and just as many pristine, perfect specimens headed back up to the battlefields. The ancients were relentless, but the Dunsenkel would do all they could to survive this last stand. In this episode, we learned a little bit more about the Light Pact. We met a second champion named Aramis, continued the adventures of Rakashi, and discovered the tragic fate of Gelchrist and his family. What will happen next week? What is the fate of the Dunkenzel dwarves? Follow along next week by subscribing below.